morning everyone, I hope you're all well. Thought I'd start outside today because the sun's shining and it's just so beautiful. Missed you last week but had a nice week off, very chilled. We did end up completely reorganising, decluttering the kitchen, so I'm going to show you how I organised it this week. We did like loads and loads of renovations last year, and if anyone's done any renovations you'll know that you get to that stage where you're just completely fed up. You just can't be bothered to do anything else, so that's the stage that I got to last year. I never really organised everything by category, found everything a proper home. I'm really pleased with what we've done. I felt really bad for not filming it while we were doing it, but to be fair, there were a fair few arguments because it's a shared space. I think kitchens are really difficult to do when they're shared, to organise and simplify. It probably would have actually made really good YouTube entertainment, but it's probably best that I didn't film it. But we did come to an agreement in the end. So we'll go inside and I will show you what we did. This little slide going into our kitchen is the cutest thing. We did was to discard anything that wasn't necessary. That felt like quite a lot of stuff for our tiny kitchen. It is a really small space, this, and I've already done all the minimizing from when we moved, so I didn't expect to have loads and loads of stuff, but to do it as a whole room just felt really overwhelming, even for this tiny kitchen. So we used the categories that Marie Kondo advises, which are food prep, so everything that you use to prepare food, pots, pans, utensils, things like that. Things that you use to eat, can't remember exactly what she calls it, but basically glasses, plates, knives, forks, all that kind of stuff. And then the third category is food, and oh my goodness, did we have a lot of food. I was shocked, and at that point I was like, Jay, this is clearly our Achilles heel of the kitchen. We have so much food. So we went through those categories individually and discarded what, didn't make us happy, what we didn't use, what was broken, what was out of date, all that kind of stuff, and then got down to the categorizing from there. Next job was to give everything a home, which is what I really wanted to do for this, and to not only give it a home, but to give it a home in accordance with its category, to give it a home that made sense, so that we could create a well-designed kitchen that worked hard for us and was easy to use as well as looking nice. I'm not into the having everything put away as much as I love minimalism and simplicity. I love that period, open plan, cottagey feeling look. It feels more inviting to me. I have open shelves, and yes, you can see everything that's on them, and some people would think that that's clutter, but as long as it's stuff that I love, makes me happy, and I use it, it's not clutter to me. But that takes a little bit more effort because it's much easier to have floor to ceiling cupboards and have everything put away. So it is quite an awkward space, and we had to improvise. It's difficult to categorize it exactly. You kind of have to improvise. a little bit. So that is what we set to work doing next. So we tried to keep food prep together, tried to keep things that we used to eat together, and tried to keep the food together. And one thing that I was really committed to doing was to prioritising what actually needs to be in the kitchen, because our kitchen can become a place for medicines, for all of Dolly's stuff, you know, all the cleaning stuff, loads and loads of things can just sort of accumulate and find their way into the kitchen. But I wanted to prioritise it for kitchen stuff, for what we actually use it for, and then with the remaining space we can see. So food felt like such a huge category, so we went with subcategorizing in accordance with what Marie Kondo advised us to do, just to see how that goes for us, see if we want to make any changes. But it felt like a good solid place to start. So her categories are dried foods like nuts, seeds, raisins, that kind of stuff, carbohydrates, bread, vitamins, treats, sweets, and fresh fruit and veg. So we tried to keep all of those categories together. You'll see that we went with dried foods behind me on these shelves, which I'm really, really pleased with how that turned out. Vitamins is a tricky one because we eat a plant-based diet, so we have to have, well, we don't have to, but we choose to have vitamin C and also, no, not vitamin C, vitamin D, and also vitamin B12 every morning. And if it's not out, if it's not easy to see, then we forget to take it. So we ended up keeping that within arm's reach, whereas Jason's protein powder is under the cupboard and put away. We kept all the vegetables in the veg basket in the cupboard, and on the other shelf we keep the breads. Our pantry is pretty small, so we've kept all the tinned foods together and we've kept the drinks under there. The idea was to put away anything that isn't as nice to look at and have what, you know, makes us happiest and looks the most beautiful out on display. The exception to the drinks is the tea and coffee out on the side, because we make tea and coffee all the time and we really like to have it out. I'm really pleased with how these two shelves turned out. I like to have them categorized. It's very simple, that okay, yeah, you go to that side for food and food prep, and then over on that side you go for plates, cups, things like that. But I do like to have my tea there, and that side of the shelves is probably the side that I'm not the most happy with, but that's okay. I'm gonna work on that side and try to restyle it a little bit. I think the tea in the jar looks a little bit out of place. As soon as I can get back to the vintage shops around here, we've got some really nice ones. I'm gonna go and look for a nice tea caddy to keep those in. Something where the materials match the rest of what's on that shelf. So probably something ceramic, or even, I think something copper might look nice, because that side doesn't get loads and loads of light. So something metallic would reflect the light really nicely and bring a bit of life to that side. So the food prep we did have to split, and we went with the put away everything that's ugly and keep out what looks nice. So everything that's ugly is in the basket, put away, so it's out of sight. It doesn't bother me that it's split. It's not the biggest kitchen, so it's not too difficult to navigate. Under the sink is where all the cleaning stuff lives, and exactly the same rules apply. So we took all of that stuff out, discarded what wasn't necessary, what we don't use, and I actually ended up getting rid of a few things that I was using to store stuff. I found that they were adding more bulk than being helpful. So that went, and we've just kept what's important, what is useful. One thing that we did do was try and clear the counters as much as possible. So I used to have a bit of a wash station next to the sink, but we wanted to keep the counters clear so that it was easier to clean, and I'm really happy that we did that. So we're keeping the washing up liquid under the sink. The brass hooks next to the sink are more for my own pleasure. I really like the look of them, and I like to store the wash brush and the minky and scissors and just make that a little pretty area while still keeping the counter space nice and clear. No matter how hard we try to declutter, there is no escaping the junk drawer. Everyone has one. Dolly's tablets, my measuring tape, poo bags and bin bags, that sort of stuff, all still has to live in there. But we did take a lot out of that stuff and tried to keep it to things that get used in this room, or things that I like to have in the house and I don't know where else to put them. Everyone has a junk drawer, right? One of my pet hates in kitchens is bins. I hate bins. And when I was reading Marie Kondo's Spark Joy, which is her book that focuses on organising the house specifically, it's really, really good. I would highly recommend it. She talks about keeping bins out of sight, and yeah, fair enough, you've got the space for it. We did manage to clear some space for the main bin in the gas meter cupboard, which is the biggest waste of space in this kitchen, but it's just what we inherited, so we have to try and work with it. But I did manage to clear a space for the bin, so I love that because it's cleared the counters a little bit more. I can't find anywhere else to put the compost bin, but that can live over there in the corner. It's quite a pretty one, so I don't mind it too much. Marie Kondo's advice was to put your compost in the freezer in like a little plastic tub, but I can't quite get my head around how that works. So if anyone is doing that, if anyone keeps their compost in the freezer, can you please let me know exactly how it works, because I just can't visualize it. Like, come compost collection day, do you defrost it and then put it in the bag? I don't know. I don't get it. Please educate me if it's something that you are doing. Final corner of the kitchen is my plate rack shelves, which I don't use for plates. It's an area that I specifically wanted to keep as something for myself. So it's a place to just keep things that make me really, really happy. Just beautiful things that I love, because yes, I love minimalism, but yes, I love beautiful things. I'm running out of plants at the minute, and all the garden centres are closed, so I'm working to propagate some plants, so hopefully I will be able to fill that up soon. But it's always nice to have a little corner that's just for you, something that you can tinker with and slowly evolve over time. So there's a no key, no letters, no junk rule for that plate rack over there. It's all mine. The pots and pans would be much easier to store inside one another. That would take up a hell of a lot less space, but I do love a peg rail, and I do love to see pots and pans hanging from a peg rail. Makes me feel so happy, and we have a spare wall that is only good for that. So working with the house makes sense to have them there. And obviously there's no seating in our kitchen because it's so tiny, so I do have a old vintage bench which was very kindly gifted to me by Home Barn under that pot and pan rail, and loads of people sit there. You look at it and you think, oh, it's not very comfy, it's not very inviting, but whenever anyone comes around, everyone always ends up piling on that little, well, it's not that little, that vintage bench over there. And there you go. I hope that you've enjoyed that little tour of the kitchen, and hopefully picked up a few tips maybe as well. I don't think there's a one size one-fits-all formula for organising a kitchen. I think they're really tricky spaces because they're shared spaces, they're very hard-working spaces. I think we have to just do the best that we can, and I don't think we can ever have too higher expectations of our kitchens. They're a workhorse, but I have found that organising by category, trying to keep the counters clear wherever possible, and only having things that you love or use regularly really helps. You know, there was a time when I used to have 2 different dinner sets, a fancy set and an everyday set, and I never used the fancy set, and I'd have about 20 glasses and 50 mugs that had accumulated, and you know, I couldn't use them all. So whittling things down to what you actually need, what you regularly use, maybe plus a few spares, really helps. But hope you've enjoyed that little tour. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.